This is Life Body Business Impact with Fatima. Welcome friends, I am so grateful to have you here. I'm your host, Fatima Ingalls, fitness expert, best-selling author, lifestyle entrepreneur, founder of the Life Body Business Fit Systems and co-founder of the amazing Freedom Retreats. My mission is to positively impact 10 million lives, to inspire you to wake up and live from your bucket list of dreams instead of waking up one day with a bucket list of regrets. Get ready to be inspired with weekly episodes and interviews that disrupt your thinking and motivate you to build your best life, body, and business. To change one life is to change many, so come with me now and let's get started with yours. Hey friends, welcome to another episode. Today we will be chatting with Dr. Carla Brion. Carla is a holistic practitioner based in Adelaide, South Australia. Dr. Brion is a qualified doctor of traditional Chinese medicine with a double degree in applied science. She's a registered herbalist and acupuncturist who has trained not only in Australia but also in China. Now, Carla believes in the importance of restoring balance in every aspect of your life, in nurturing your physical, mental, and emotional health awareness. She works with patients to make lifestyle and dietary adjustments to complement her Chinese medicine treatment and help them get the best results. She's also super passionate about integrative medicine and educating her patients, focusing primarily on digestive issues, gut health, women's health, including hormone balancing, PCOS, and endometriosis, as well as emotional disorders such as stress, anxiety, and depression, which is rampant in our society these days. Although Dr. Carla is now best known for her knowledge in supporting natural fertility. I'm so excited to have her here. Carla, thank you so much for giving us your time today and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's nice to be here.
Carla, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about how you came to be a integrative therapist or practitioner. What led you to traditional Chinese medicine?
Well, it's a bit of a, I feel like I almost fell into it. So I finished high school and I kind of went to uni not really knowing what I wanted to do. And I just picked any degree. So I ended up in like a journalism media studies degree, which looking back now it was fun and interesting, but so far removed from my soul calling. And then I kind of realized one day that it wasn't, fulfilling me and it wasn't the right thing for me. So I kind of just pulled out of uni, moved to Melbourne the next week. And in Melbourne, I met a holistic practitioner who brought me back to my roots of, wanting to look after people, wanting to heal, care for people. My mum's a nurse, so I spent a lot of time in hospitals, around that kind of healing energy. And I remember being as a kid, I was really into nursing my teddies and looking after the neighbours' pets and other kids. So yeah, I think I just kind of woke up to my calling in a way and just wanted to do something with my hands, healing hands on. Nothing too, I guess, westernized, because I just didn't feel like that was, as much as I love hospitals, I feel like I just wanted to do something really hands-on. So I kind of just found Chinese medicine. I got some books on it, studied up, and then I looked for a suitable degree in Australia, and then I found the one in Melbourne and just jumped into it.
That's beautiful that you had the courage to change from something that you thought you were supposed to do in uni to what you said was your soul calling, to be a healer, I guess. You talk about being very hands-on. So to me, the first thing that came to mind was that, your soul calling is to be a healer.
Yes, that's right. And it's funny because, I moved to Melbourne and then I moved back to Adelaide, and that's kind of when I decided that's what I wanted to do, but I had to apply and I had to do all these bridging courses. So it was a bit of a process. And then as soon as I got in, I moved to Melbourne. And while I was there, I was pretty much like semi-homeless for the first year, like living in people's lounge rooms, garages. I was even in a hotel for a few months. And, it was just so hard. I was like, this is killing me. I've just left all my family and friends and I don't have anywhere to live. But the passion and I guess the way that I felt about studying Chinese medicine and the way it just kind of clicked for me, it was like way greater than the struggles that I was having. So yeah, I just kind of knew I was in the right place, that no matter what I was going through, I was like, this is where I need to be. So yeah.
Yeah, that is really beautiful. There's a lesson there in following your calling once you work out what it is, or when something feels right, whether it is in life or whether it is in business or studies. There's a message there for all of us in relation to sacrifices and sometimes the tough times you have to go through in order to follow your calling. And I mean, you're in an amazing place now and doing amazing things and touching so many people's lives. One of my philosophies is to change one life is to change many. It's a massive
That's right.
And
Yes.
Imagine had you not followed through and lived in the hotel room and had the tough times away from your family and friends to follow this passion, how many lives you have managed to impact that would not have been impacted by you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I've never really thought about that, I guess, like the alternative of, maybe if I'd stayed in that first degree, doing media and, ends up as a journalist, or just, dropping out altogether and not following kind of that intuition. I've never really thought about the alternative.
Yeah, well, you didn't take the alternative, so it's wonderful that you're doing what you're doing. I'd love to talk to you about busy life and how it is affecting our hormone health. Obviously, hormone health is something you specialise in. How is the lives that we lead today, the very busy lives, and even maybe the impact of social media on our lives, affecting people's hormone health?
Well, that's a bit of a can of worms topic. It's so broad and could be here for hours. But I think from like a real zoomed out point of view, when we're talking about our lifestyle, it's so far removed from what we are, like our roots as humans and the way we function. Like even just the fact that we do 9 to 5 with, maybe a half an hour break in the middle, it is just so beyond what our bodies were meant to do. Even the fact that most of us sit all day on chairs, it's just the basic things that, we're so far from, what we started out to be. And I think women especially, and women's hormones are really affected, and they've taken a toll on our health, and you can see this in the crazy numbers of fertility issues, of endometriosis, of PCOS, of thyroid disorders. This is all due to hormone imbalances, and whether they're due from genetics or epigenetics or toxins or diet, or maybe just a combination of them all, there's no doubt that stress and lifestyle plays one of the biggest roles in causing hormone disruption. So on a very basic level, if we're too busy, or if we're kind of just go, we're not actually stopping and relaxing and breathing properly, and our body is kind of running in this fight or flight state, or it's a sympathetic nervous system kind of overdrive, and essentially our body just thinks that we're trying to survive, we're running away from a tiger to stay alive. So when we're in this kind of fight or flight state, we've got adrenaline, cortisol, all the stress hormones pumping through our body, and essentially all the blood flow goes to the main vital organs and to the extremities, as if we were running from the tiger. And when we're in this, our body doesn't function as well. So blood flow to the gut is impaired, and also blood flow to the womb, the ovaries, the uterus, our whole reproductive organs is also, greatly decreased. So therefore, they're not getting the nourishment that they need. No blood, no oxygen, no nutrients to our womb and our ovaries. So that in itself is quite significant. And when you look at the role that the stress hormones play on the reproductive hormones, they can really impact things like insulin or progesterone and estrogen. So we're getting this imbalance of our female sex hormones. Stress can really affect PCOS, and it can really increase the severity of things like endometriosis, and it can also really play an impact on your fertility, because this all relates to your mental health and your well-being. And I mean, a lot of us are starting to realize that there's a massive connection between the gut and the mind, and that mind-gut connection, because our gut is our second brain, it's our emotional center, and in our gut we make all the neurotransmitters. It helps our immunity, and having, I guess, decreased blood flow to the gut can impact everything. So yeah, it's at a very basic kind of scientific level, if you want to look at it that way. It's just creating havoc in our body in a way.
Yeah, the gut-brain connection, I guess that people are learning a lot more. There's a lot more information out there, and people are becoming a lot more aware of that. But you talked about so many amazing things there. I want to go back to epigenetics. Not too many people know what epigenetics are. Can you give us a little bit of an insight onto epigenetics and how they're affecting an everyday person like me sitting here at my desk, or mum or dad driving to school, or the business person sitting there in their corporate job right now?
I will try. I'm probably not as schooled as I could be, and maybe my terminology might be wrong, but I'll try and put it into, I guess, layman's terms, the way that I understand it, without having to go into, without doing, massive amounts of study and extra courses and research. Yeah, well, in a nutshell, my understanding is that, we've got genes, we've all got like a special gene coding, what our genetics that we're born with, that we're passed on and that we're born with, but some genes are switched on and some genes are switched off. So things like, even celiacs, for example, you can have the gene and not actually be actively, expressing celiac disease, but if you've got the gene, it has the potential to switch on, which means that it also has the potential to switch off. So lifestyle choices, including diet, stress factors, exercise, having, poor lifestyle choices can actually affect our genetics and our genes, and specific genes can get switched on due to that, which means that we're going to express whatever that gene is and therefore have that disease or that disorder or whatever it is. I guess the beauty of that is if it's got the potential to turn on, then it has the potential to turn off, which means that we can influence these genes with our diet and our lifestyle choices. Through diet, we can actually, especially diet, we can actually change the way our genetics function in a way.
Yeah, that's quite exciting. Like you said, they can be switched on or switched off, and that's the power in people getting educated. I know that's something you're passionate about, and so am I, is that just because there is some sort of health issue going on in your life, not getting into any specifics here, because maybe your lifestyle choices have caused the gene to be turned on, changes in your lifestyle choices with education means that you can turn it off. You can, the way I like to put it in my layman's terms, not necessarily just in relation to epigenetics, we can create an environment in our body where disease thrives or life thrives.
That's right. Yeah, perfect.
It's sort of what I've had to learn for myself with my own health issues, which we're not talking about me here, so let's keep going. In relation to endometriosis, PCOS and hormone balance, you touched a little bit on that. I guess it makes sense when you say that we are, with the lifestyle that we are living, we're constantly in fight or flight mode. Rearing a baby is, your body's kind of going, no, it's not safe for me to have a baby now. And it's not just the women, is it? It's also what's going on in the men's bodies that can affect that.
Yes.
Is that correct?
It's huge. That's right. And I think traditionally, historically, culturally, we are just programmed to believe that it's the woman's job to fall pregnant and, grow a baby and rear a child. So that's just like that, that very traditional role. And it's almost like the men have forgotten what they actually do or what their part in it. And so therefore we carry this burden that if things aren't going right, if we're not falling pregnant within 6 or 12 months, then it's got to be the woman's fault. It's her body, it's her problem. But what we don't realize is that a lot of the time it's actually due to, it can be a combination. It can be so many things. A lot of the time it's actually unknown reasons, which, is a whole nother story in itself I could talk about for, another whole day. But the male sperm quality is going down significantly and really quickly too. So the quality of sperm, not just like the quantity, the numbers of sperm, but that men are having in, say, for one example, like for one ejaculation, the numbers have decreased, but also the morphology, the way that they're actually made, and their motility, so the way that they actually swim. So all of the quality of sperm in general has just decreased quite a lot. And not only that, the parameters of what they judge as a good sperm has also kind of narrowed and closed. So for example, 30 years ago, a good sperm count would be, I'm just making up the numbers here, say 500 million. And nowadays I might say, 100 million. I can't remember the exact numbers. I've got a bit of a brain blank. But even just the fact that, the quality of sperm that they say is okay now is just so different to what it used to be 20, 30 years ago.
That is very, very interesting. For men out there, what are a few simple changes that they can apply that will affect their sperm, the quality of the sperm, the health of their sperm?
Yeah. It's almost like the same as if a woman was to come to me for fertility, I'd almost do like a mini life overhaul. So I'd look at her diet, what's going in her body, her lifestyle, her stress factors, the type of exercise she's doing, the amount of sleep she's getting, the amount of water she's drinking, all those things. And it's the same with guys. So if you want to try and influence sperm, which we actually have the power to do, and a lot of people don't even know that you can actually help regenerate sperm into healthier sperm. So even in just 3 months, because it takes, I think spermatogenesis, which is the production of new sperm, takes over about 3 months, so 90 to 100 days, which means that in 3 months we can potentially get that sperm looking healthier. And the more time we've got, the better, the better that the sperm can potentially be. But diet is huge. Alcohol, especially for men, like reducing that alcohol, eating a highly whole food, highly plant-based diet. But little things like wearing boxer shorts, for example. Wearing boxer shorts can actually help because you can actually literally cook your sperm, which can cause the malfunction and the shape of sperm to become deformed. You might have 2 heads or 2 tails, and that can be just due to wearing jocks all the time because you're literally cooking them. Not taking saunas and spas, keeping your phone out of your pocket because the radiation can affect the sperm quality. They're just little things that you can kind of keep in mind if you're thinking, all right, I need to get my body on track. I want to have a baby, or, I just want the quality of my sperm to be better. But when I do see men for fertility, I give them a whole program. So I'll give them specific supplements to increase sperm quality and numbers, and I'll give them Chinese herbs do regular acupuncture. I'll set them up with a bit of a diet plan, and we've got this male fertility smoothie that they can drink every day. So
that would be really great if you could actually share the male fertility smoothie, and if people are interested, I'll pop a link in as to where they can get that from you, Carla.
Yeah, sure. I'll dig it out of my computer. I haven't actually seen men since I've been back on I've kind of sent the guys to my colleague, my male colleague at the clinic, because I've just been too busy since coming back from maternity leave. Yeah. I'm only doing a few hours a week. So yeah, I've sent all the guys to him. So I'll find it for you.
All of the information that you shared was really, really interesting. And the thing is, it's not massive, huge, overwhelming change. I mean, you said 90 to 100 days can make a difference, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming, and it doesn't have to.
Yes.
I think that's an important part for people to realise.
Yeah, that's right. And, it is one of those things that, depending on what's actually going on with individuals and the severity of what their sperm quality is like, it could take longer, it could be a longer thing. But just to put it into perspective, that there is hope. Like, it doesn't mean that you have to go get a sperm donor, or it doesn't mean that you have to, completely give up on that hope of having a family. And I think it would be really good that if more men knew this, that they don't have to just kind of roll over and give up, because a lot of women do all these things to help their body become more fertile, but the men aren't really there yet. And it's almost like I think there's a massive thing in terms of like masculinity and ego, because it's a really hard thing to talk about. So,
yeah, and this is why I wanted to get you to share some tips specifically for the men, because we always talk about the women, and there, like you said, there is a lot more information about what the women need to do, but I wanted some information for our male listeners. I'd love to talk about the pill. I personally was on the pill for many, many years before and then after having children, during several times, and with my own health issues and journey, I spoke with a naturopath and completely came off the pill, learned a lot more about it and the effects it has on hormones and reproductivity and all sorts of things. So can you talk to us about the pill? Yes or no?
I can. I will try and keep it very, very brief, because again, it's one of those things, it's a bit of a wormhole that you can really dive into, and it can almost become political, because it is one of those things I'm quite passionate about. And I know that there are times when women might absolutely need it, but the reality is it's grossly overprescribed. Like, it's one of the most prescribed drugs that we have in Australia, which is scary in itself. And it's being prescribed without the education that the women, or the young girls, the teenagers actually need. So they're kind of taking this, trusting the doctors, and not actually understanding what it's doing to their body. Most of them are either going on the pill at a very young age because they might have irregular periods, or they might have skin problems, but the pill was purely made once upon a time for contraceptive reasons, to not fall pregnant, but it's just been overused and overprescribed for all these other reasons. And the fact that we're now understanding all the side effects that it has, and how potentially dangerous it can be for specific women, like blood clotting issues, to name one of them. It's really quite scary, and I think we're actually starting to wake up to it a little bit, which is great. And I really hope that we move towards that kind of more of a natural approach when it comes to balancing our hormones, and doing the natural approach first, rather than kind of going on the pill and being like, oh no, actually this isn't working, let's try the natural now. It'll be nice to see the natural be like the first point of call, rather than going straight to the doctors for the prescription of the pill.
So what is actually happening when a woman is taking a full cycle of the pill? What is her body going through?
Well, it's almost as if, like, not specifically, but it's almost as if her body thinks she's pregnant. So the hormone, I guess, the hormone cascade that would be going on isn't happening. And essentially it's like her body, it's not properly ovulating, and her ovaries forget to work. Those hormones forget to talk to each other. And the biggest thing, which, from a Chinese med point of view, is aside from the fact that it can cause further hormone imbalances, because it is a synthetic hormone mimicking and interfering with your natural hormone cycle, it doesn't let your body have its monthly cycle. So when you're actually bleeding, when you have a period, you take the pill for say 21 days and the sugar pill for 7 days. When you bleed, it's a withdrawal bleed. It's not an actual period. It's a drug withdrawal bleed. So, your body isn't having a full cycle of, progesterone and estrogen going up and down, and your body temperature going up and down, and having that detox once a month through bowels, and your bowels move before your period. And most importantly, your endometrial lining isn't flushing every month. So you kind of get old blood kind of building up, and then a little bit will fall out but you don't actually get the whole lining, regenerating, building up, and then shedding and starting anew. So it can create all sorts of issues in the endometrial lining, but it can also cause other issues. So without there being any scientific evidence, it has been known to be associated with causing PCOS, possibly. A lot of women who have endometriosis get put on the pill because it can help their symptoms, but it's a band-aid approach in terms of the way it helps their symptoms, because they're not having proper periods, they're not having the pain associated with their periods, but it doesn't necessarily fix their endo. It kind of just puts a band-aid on it. And from, again, back to a Chinese med point of view, it causes internal heat because it's quite drying, so it can cause your body to be a little bit hotter and drier, but it can also cause blood stagnation because you're not having that free-flowing blood, that free-flowing period every month, which means that, you can get all sorts of, from a Chinese med point of view, blood deficiency, blood stagnation, yin deficiency, these kind of things, which lead to all sorts of imbalances.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I know, being on the pill since I was about 16 up into my early 30s, and even it was after I'd had my 3 children, I actually thought that while being on the pill, that bleed was a period, was an actual period. I had no idea that wasn't the case until some years back when I went on my own natural health and healing journey. So, and I know so many people, so many women that I speak to out there, and even coaching clients that are of the same opinion, some around my age, some a bit younger, some older. So again, it's that education, and I hope that there are women listening to what you have shared today, that and even men who share it with their partners, what the importance of getting the education around this, so that you can make informed decisions about.
Yes, that's right. I think that's the biggest thing, because again, there are times when someone might really need it. And I'm not denying that, because I definitely think Western medicine has a place, and I'm all for bridging that gap between Western and Eastern, ancient and modern.
Yeah.
And I like to work with doctors and GPs and gynecologists, but I just think the rate at which it's being dished out is just too much. And without the proper knowledge and education behind it, I feel like, that's a bit of an issue, because I just see the other end of it. Like, I get women, coming into me who want to come off the pill, but they're scared that their skin's going to break out, and it does go crazy if that's what they're on it for. And I get the women who have come off the pill and they're not getting their period. It might be 6 months or 12 months or even 2 years that they haven't had a natural period for. So I'm kind of cleaning up the mess that the pill is making, and it's causing all sorts of fertility issues that we need to kind of work with. So, if I can give any advice, it would be to really think about, I guess, tune into your body and see if it's actually working for you, if it sits well with you, not just from a physical kind of point of view, but like from more of like a holistic spiritual point of view, whether it sits with you energetically. And if you are looking at starting a family, or getting your body kind of a bit more on track in terms of fertility, then I would give yourself a solid year to get off the pill before you want to have a baby. I mean, they say 3 cycles, but I think it will do your body a lot better to take more time off, because it can take quite a while for the pill to leave your system, to almost your hormones and your cycle to regulate again. And the worst thing you'd want to do is kind of leave it too late, where you're like, oh, I want to have a baby like now, but I've been on the pill for 20 years or 15 years, and then your period just won't, it doesn't come back immediately because your body's forgotten what to do. So yeah, just kind of leaving yourself a bit of time when you do come off of it.
Yeah, I think it's important to really ask more questions. What I learned myself, not just accept what is being told, it's just ask more questions so that you get more information. And in relation to the pill, what if you're someone who isn't wanting to get pregnant, or maybe has already had children and are back on the pill? Like, is it still important to, what other effects does it have, or can it have, to your health that maybe you need to consider before deciding to go on it or stay on it, even if you're not looking to have children, if fertility isn't an issue necessarily?
Yeah, well, that's right. It can cause a lot of emotional imbalances, whether it be like heightened irritability. It can cause depression. It's been known to be linked with depression. So there's like the emotional side, but again, it is an artificial hormone in your body, which is undoubtedly going to have a side effect, whether it be one, whether it be a handful. It is just one of those things that it's not going to kind of go unnoticed by the body. And some women don't actually have any symptoms when they come off it. They kind of can just have that smooth transition. But I guess the longer you're on it, the more likely that it is going to cause issues, and it's going to be harder to deal with when you do come off of it. So from a contraceptive point of view, it's totally one of those things that it is a safety, and it's a bit of like peace of mind, which is really important. If you don't want to have any more children, or you don't want to conceive, or you're not even in the space or don't want to have any children, it is one of those things that is known to be, accurate and, successful in being a contraceptive. But there are natural means that you can actually do if you do it properly, and that's the big thing, like doing it properly. And this includes, the most accurate to be a basal body temperature charting to figure out when your fertile window is and when you ovulate. So in that fertile window, you obviously try and abstain from having sex, or if you do want to, then you use, backup barrier methods and be safe. So you can just do the old-fashioned way of doing your basal body temperature every morning, which there are rules to it to make it, make sure you're doing it correctly, because you can stuff it up and then that can throw everything out. But you can actually get new devices. For example, I'm about to purchase myself. It's called a Daisy, and that's like a little computer which tells you when you're fertile and ovulating. So there are ways around it. So you don't necessarily have to go on the pill. It's not your only option. There are natural alternatives out there.
Yeah, so if you're not wanting to put those, even like if fertility is an issue and you're not wanting to just put those synthetic hormones into your body, or, you're having mental health stresses because, or related possibly to the pill, there are other ways around it. I guess that's what the takeaway is.
That's right, yeah. And I know personally, like, I've never really I've been on the pill maybe a couple of months here and there in my life, but I remember like when I was 18 or 19, I remember trying it and thinking, all right, let's give it a go. But within a month, I just didn't recognize myself. Not only did I feel uncomfortable in my body, like I'd retained water, I'd put on weight, my boobs got bigger, but I was emotionally a wreck. Like I was so angry and upset, and I didn't feel like myself. And I ceased taking it. And then a couple of years later, like maybe 5 years later, I was going to India, and I was like, you know what, I'll just try it again, even just for 1 month, just while I'm in India, because I'm nervous of the sanitary, like hygiene issue in India. So I'll just take it for 1 month. But literally within a week, I was that person again, and it really played with my mental health and my emotions. And my partner at the time, he was affected, and it was really horrendous. And it makes sense now, because a few years later, I was diagnosed with endometriosis, which is an estrogen dominant kind of autoimmune disorder. And so if you've got all this excess estrogen in your body, putting an artificial estrogen in your body can only, or can often cause issues. And a lot of the women I see who have endo, who've been prescribed the pill, they say it just doesn't work for them. Some people, they don't have any issues and they don't notice it, but a lot of the women who have endo and take the pill notice, especially the mental health aspect. So yeah, it's really quite
really interesting information for women out there to know, from teenagers up till any age. You talked about the estrogen there. Are there certain foods that affect women's estrogen levels?
For me, the obvious one would be, I guess, animal products, like meat and dairy, because they're coming from animals who have their own estrogen. Not only that, if it's like factory farmed or whatever, they're given hormones to boost them and grow them and bulk them up, and they're given antibiotics and all these sorts of things. And then they're often fed, the food that they're given is often crushed, crushed up dead animals, like chicken and fed chicken. So that's just, more estrogen and more hormones. And then if we're eating just regular chicken, that's adding to our hormones. And the same as, as dairy and milk, because our genetics are so similar, it's more likely to interfere with our own hormones. So yeah,
very, very important to be aware of, rather than people just going, you shouldn't eat meat, or you should eat less meat or less dairy because it's not good for your health. Understanding the reasons why and how and why it can affect it. So
and there's so many reasons, like there's so many different ways that it can affect. And there's a lot of research to show that highly plant-based, not necessarily purely, but highly whole food plant-based diets are good for not just endo, PCOS, and not just hormone, but autoimmune, inflammatory, and they're used worldwide to reduce or to reverse heart disease and diabetes. It's kind of one of those things it's an all-rounder.
Yeah.
But the one thing I was going to say is there's a lot of almost food demonization. For example, like some people think that soy is like the devil when it comes to hormones, which is not necessarily true, because there's a lot of research to show that it doesn't cause you to have man boobs or anything like that, which is these ridiculous kind of fallacies. So yeah, there's often a lot of that kind of going around as well, which can be
there is, and that's part of the issue, right? Because sometimes people are trying to make some changes and decisions, and there's so much information out there, and some people believe that you should eat this way or practice this methodology or that methodology. And usually I say to my clients, you know what, again, ask the questions, what feels right for you. If you don't have enough information, ask for some more so that you can make an informed decision about what works for you. And what one person is dealing with in their body and in their mind can be very different to what another person is doing. So method A might work for one person and not work for another. So it's not about, I don't think it's about making anything in particular wrong or bad. It's about finding what works for you and getting informed. So, I mean, I'm not a huge meat eater as well, but I completely understand what you're saying in relation to the meat and dairy. I'm not a massive fan. And I look back over time and think, well, all these hormones that are affecting our body and hormones, not just fertility, but mental health and a whole host of other health issues. Back in the old days, dare I say the old days, you know, there wasn't hormones in the food that the animals are eating that are being passed on or being injected with and being passed on to what we eat and what then goes into our body. So we're living in a very different world in terms of the food that's available to us.
That's right.
So there's just a massive flow-on effect, isn't there?
Yeah, that's right. And it's not just the hormones that they're injected with, but it's the quality of life, their overall health, their happiness, their energy. There's like so many layers and levels, but not even that. It's just the pure amount, like, you know, the normal amount. The recommended, you know, meat intake is, you know, 2 to 3 servings a day, when some people actually have 2 to 3 servings a week, when some people are having that a day. So that's just a big shift in that Western world. You know, that, you know, not so much in Asian countries. It tends to be a little bit less, and they probably eat more of, you know, fish or whatever. And, you know, without going into too much detail, all the studies show that the Mediterranean diet is one of the healthiest and, you know, best for longevity. And that's really high in, you know, vegetables, you know, natural oils, freshly caught fish, all that kind of stuff. You know, it is kind of very basic.
All the good fats as well. I'd love to switch gear now. And you mentioned something about spirituality earlier. I'd love to talk to you about ancient wisdom, rituals, self-care. You've mentioned recently one of your posts, and there's a quiz attached, so we can pop a link up to that one. You've mentioned your constitutional element, Chinese medicine, and your personality. Can you talk to us about that? I find it to be quite intriguing and interesting.
Well, Chinese medicine is based upon a couple of principles which make up the whole universe, the energy of the universe, but everything in it. So it's based upon yin yang, which is opposing opposites, and, you know, interrelated forces of day night, hot cold, dark light, feminine masculine, for example. But the 5 elements is also a huge part of how the universe, our bodies, our health, our emotions, everything within our world is kind of working and interrelating. So the 5 elements are fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. And those 5 elements correlate to the 5 seasons, to the 5 main emotions, and then they've got their own organ and energy attached to it. So you can actually almost figure out a little bit more about yourself as a person, and your health, and your well-being, your mental health, physical health, due to what constitutional element you are. And when we're talking about that, I mean in terms of what is your element that is most weakest. So we all have, you know, we're made up from the earth, we're part of this earth, we are completely in tune with the way nature, with our environment, with seasons. You know, we are part of the world around us, whether we kind of realize it or not. And we do have all of the elements within us. We have the fire, the earth, the metal, the water, and the wood. So fire is joy and often love. Earth is worry, overthinking. Metal is grief. Water is fear, and wood is anger. So we've got all these 5 elements and 5 emotions within us, but one of them tends to be weaker and needs more nurturing and supporting, because that is our constitutional element. For example, I'm a metal element. Metal corresponds to the autumn, and is the emotion of grief. And looking back, you know, the main organs are lungs and large intestine. And the lung is all to do with skin. The large intestine is all to do with, you know, waste and digestion. And these are kind of my main issues. Oops, my dog just jumped on my lap. Sorry.
That's okay. Dog can join in. Is it Gypsy?
Yes, it's Gypsy.
Gypsy's just joining in on this podcast interview. It's all good.
And Farah just woke up, so you might hear her chirping in the background.
Oh,
so we've got the whole family.
That's Carla's 11-month baby girl.
11 months, yeah.
11 month. Oh my God. I meant 11 month in my head. I've got 11-year-old son, that's why.
That's totally fine. I would be a little shocked if she was 11, but
almost Sorry, I'm distracting you from what we were talking about. Let's get back to it.
Totally fine. So yeah, if you can understand a little bit about your element, then you can understand a little a little bit more about the way your emotions work, or the way you're more emotionally inclined. It can also tell you a little bit about the way your body works in terms of health, like, what organs might be affected, what your general sicknesses might be. So yeah, I get a lot of sinusy stuff, I get a lot of digestive stuff, I get a lot of skin stuff. They're my kind of issues that I have, and they're all related to my large intestine and lung from a Chinese point of view. And I really relate to the personality type of a metal element. And I made this quiz based on the 5 elements, and it might not be 100% accurate because it is, really basic. There's 13 questions, and when we are diagnosing someone to find out their constitutional element, we use visual. So it's sight, the way that their skin, the energy of the skin, the smell of their like they've actually got a smell. It's the way that their voice sounds, so the intonation of their voice and the energy of their voice. So there's all sorts of things that we use to diagnose someone. So it may not be 100% accurate, but it is it's been pretty spot on with most people, and most people would kind of relate. Yeah, it's a really old school kind of classical Chinese medicine approach, and it's not practiced. It's not the main form of Chinese medicine that most people know. Like, it's kind of an old school of thought in itself. But for me, I'm really just passionate about the elements and the way that they interact with our lives and our emotions and our health, and knowing someone's element can really help me in deciding what formula or acupuncture points to use for them, or even just understanding their emotions and their personality, which might help me treat them further. So yeah, it can be really, really interesting just to find out what you might be from that Chinese medicine point of view.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I love that you have such a huge holistic approach. I think it's the best way to approach our health and life. Guys and girls, go and do that quiz. I'm going to pop a link to that quiz down in the show notes. So please go and do the quiz. It'll be really, really interesting for you. Carla, are there any parting thoughts? Are there any practical steps that people can incorporate into their life, like 3 practical steps that they can incorporate into their life for better health, whether they're looking for fertility or overall better health?
Well, that's hard. 3 steps is very, very hard. But I think the biggest thing would be to seek help, get support. You're not in this alone. You don't have to do it alone. You're not an expert in every field that you might need to be in. And I always refer out, I always go to other practitioners because I definitely don't know it all and I can't do it all, and I have my field. So really educate yourself and use the education of others in terms of, getting yourself back on track. I think the second point would be to really practice self-care and do all the things you can do at home, so that when you do see a practitioner, for example, if you do go get acupuncture, then you're going to get better results because you're doing the work yourself. You can't just put it all up on a practitioner to fix you or heal you. You've got to do the work yourself. So self-care practices like meditation, breathing, journaling, gratitude exercises, that's, they're little things you can do to support your health and well-being. And the third thing, I guess, would be to, take a step back and look at your whole life and almost zoom out and see if there are anything that doesn't really sit well with you, or you think there's something that's really, you're not living according to your values or living in alignment, or just something you feel like isn't right. And, you can look at changing that or improving that, whether it be the way you exercise, whether it be, dealing with your emotions, whether it be your stress levels, whether it be your diet and the way you eat, the food that you eat, where it comes from, all of those things. I think it's just really looking at your life as a whole and considering mind, body, spirit, diet, lifestyle and environment and all those factors, and seeing where, you can tweak things and improve things, even if it's just one little thing a day or one thing a week or one small aspect of all of those things. You can make a difference, and you have the power to, heal yourself and work with your own health.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Carla. Where can people connect with you? Where can they follow you? If they're wanting to book an appointment, where will they find you? Or if they're just wanting to follow your Instagram page, which I absolutely love. It is full of lots of really interesting information.
Thank you. My Instagram is at Dr. Carla Brion. So that's DrCarlaBrion. And my website is tonique.com.au. So my branding is called Tonique. And that's www.tonique.com.au.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Carla. I really, really appreciate your time, and I'm sure that the listeners will have taken away so much valuable information.
Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully I didn't ramble on too much, but I really appreciate, the fact that I can, given a voice to help, even if it's just one small thing that you take away, then I'm appreciative and grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. I truly hope you have found it beneficial and have taken some value from it. Hopefully, a lot. If you did, please share this show with anyone you feel may need to hear it. I would also absolutely love if you would take a minute or two to review this show on iTunes, Stitcher, or whichever platform you happen to be listening to it on. With your help, we can accomplish my mission to positively impact 10 million lives. That would be so awesome. Now, if you want to connect with me or my guests on other platforms, or if you want to send me an email with questions or ideas of guests to interview, please check out the show notes. I am so incredibly grateful to have had your time today, and I can't wait to have you on the next episode. Have a great day.